There are letters written with love. There are letters written with profound sadness. And then there is that one. A letter that, according to reliable witnesses, came from the other side of death, from the depths of eternal damnation itself. It was discovered among the belongings of a nun in a convent in Germany during the 1950s. And its message was so dark, so disturbingly real, so intrinsically true, that the local bishop granted permission for it to be published, classifying it as highly instructive for souls seeking to understand the reality of eternity. Within those yellowed and fragile pages lay the voice of a woman who had died suddenly, a woman who claimed to be writing from hell itself, from a state of eternal damnation. Her name was Annie, and what she revealed in that disturbing letter would have the power to shake even the most skeptical and hardened heart. Her testimony offered descriptions so specific, so theologically coherent, so profoundly disturbing, that it forces the reader to confront a truth that modernity desperately tries to deny. Hell is real, damnation is possible, and eternal rest without God is a reality that can only be avoided through genuine conversion and divine grace. During the 19th century, in a quiet and discreet convent located in the German region, a devoted professed nun passed from this life to eternity. Among her carefully guarded personal belongings, the sisters who inventoried her possessions discovered an old letter, its pages yellowed with age, written in a trembling and fragile hand. The calligraphy revealed extreme emotional instability, as if the hand that wrote it was being forced to record truths it preferred never to reveal. The letter had no legible signature, but its contents were so terrifying, so detailed in their description of eternal suffering, so specific in their theological revelations, that the Church itself later approved its publication as highly instructive material for souls wishing to understand supernatural realities. The document quickly became known in ecclesiastical circles as the Letter from Beyond, an undeniable testimony to the reality of damnation. The nun who discovered it explained to the inquisitorial bishop that the letter had come to her through an extraordinary dream experience. In the night vision, she had seen her old friend, a woman named Annie, who had died years before in a devastating car accident. Annie appeared before her, pale and tormented beyond human description, and placed a sheaf of written pages in the nun's hands. When the nun awoke from that disturbing dream, the pages were indeed there beside her bed, exactly as she had seen them in the vision. It was not a hallucination. It was a genuine manifestation of a reality that completely transcended the natural. The letter began with a single dreadful sentence that cut to the heart like a sword. "Claraara, don't pray for me. I am condemned for all eternity." From that devastating starting point, the letter unfolds as a testimony from the depths of eternity itself. It is the lacerating confession of a soul permanently separated from God, condemned to experience the absolute darkness that results from that separation. Annie explained that she and Claraara had once worked together in the same office, sharing the same physical space for hours and days. They had been cordial friends, though not deeply close at heart. When Annie later married, they gradually lost contact with each other, as so many youthful friendships dissipate throughout life. Annie had died suddenly in a catastrophic car accident in 1937. Her earthly life ended abruptly and without warning. Claraara, upon receiving the news of her old friend's death, was overcome with profound sadness. She attended the funeral mass and offered Holy Communion for the repose of her friend's soul. But that same night she couldn't sleep. She heard disturbing noises at her bedroom door, sounds she couldn't rationally explain. The following morning in her dream, she found the letter written in Annie's unmistakable handwriting, preserving particular characteristics of her writing that no one else could recognize. And that is what the letter revealed with disturbing clarity and absolute honesty. "Claraara, do not pray for me. I am lost forever in eternal darkness. If I tell you this and reveal the details of my condemnation, it is not out of the friendship we once shared. Here, in this place, no one loves anyone. All feelings have been frozen in absolute hatred. I do this only because I am forced by a power that always desires evil but paradoxically produces good through the revelation of truth. I wish you were here with me in this place of torment. For here everyone thinks exactly the same way. Everyone shares the same mental slavery. Our will is eternally frozen in hatred. Annie then begins to describe her life on earth in detail, revealing a profound understanding of how each choice shapes eternity. Her parents, she explains, had once been practicing Catholics, but had gradually abandoned the church and their faith over the years. Her childhood was ordinary, without major crimes that shocked society, without public scandals that marked her. But there was a profound absence of genuine prayer, absence of participation in Sunday Mass, absence of regular confession. Religion was something distant, almost ridiculous, something that simple or superstitious people practiced. She writes bitterly, "My parents met at a dance. They married out of obligation, not true love. In their marriage, only a few drops of holy water remained of their former faith. I never truly learned to pray. Words like grace, mass, and church disgusted me even to write them now. We, the damned, hate everything that exists. We even envy nothingness because we cannot cease to exist." She describes the unparalleled horror of existence after death, a state that transcends all human comprehension, a state without restorative sleep, without genuine rest, without any hope of relief or redemption. We do not eat. We do not walk. We do not rest as we did in life. We are chained in spirit, forced to eternally contemplate every grace we once rejected. Every memory burns like unbearable fire. We drink hatred as if it were water that sustains us. Annie goes on to speak of her hatred for God, born not of simple ignorance, but of deliberate and conscious rebellion against his authority. The blessed in heaven must love him because they see him in his transcendent beauty. Souls on earth can love him freely, for they see only his reflection in creatures. But we who have seen him as judge and consciously reject him hate him forever. We cannot and will not change even if we could. Even when she tries to lie about her condition or minimize her guilt, she reports that she cannot do so. She is compelled by absolute truth and God's justice. I am forced to tell the truth even against my will. I must swallow the insults I would like to hurl at God. He is merciful even to us, for he does not allow us to draw closer to him. If he did, his nearness would be an unbearable fire that would consume us completely. Annie recalls her childhood in specific detail, a father who drank heavily, finding solace in alcohol, a mother who worked incessantly without ever finding contentment, a home completely devoid of genuine prayer or any meaningful religious practice. She remembers her first communion, an event she received lightly, more as a social formality than as an act of genuine faith and surrender. My father just told me to make sure my dress was pretty. Nothing else mattered to him. Faith was irrelevant. She scoffs at the modern practice of giving communion to children at age 7, stating that demons work diligently to prevent these children from truly receiving the grace of the sacrament. It is better, she writes bitterly, that a child commit mortal sin first, so that when she receives the white God in the host, he cannot harm us so much in our war against her soul. Annie explains how her life gradually moved from indifference to a cold and calculated rejection of God. She had joined a young women's association, had participated in outings and social events, but gradually drifted away from any practice of authentic prayer. She states, "All those who burn here never prayed enough in life. Prayer is the first step towards God, the easiest and the most decisive for salvation. To those who pray, God offers light and spiritual strength, but I did not want his grace." If you now understand that there is a spiritual reality that modernity tries to silence, if you truly want to understand the urgent call that God offers through these extraordinary testimonies, subscribe to our channel now. She admits that she stopped praying genuinely years before her death. Her heart had progressively hardened against the voice of God. There is no more grace here. If it were offered, we would spit it out in scorn and rejection. She recalls how, before her death, she had created her own comfortable and convenient religion, a superficial belief in reincarnation. She had convinced herself that after death, the soul would simply return to earth in another body. free from the consequences of its actions. That illusion removed all genuine fear and responsibility. I created a God, she admits with eternal remorse, who was distant enough not to demand anything of me and vague enough to change whenever he wished. I replaced genuine devotion with material pleasures, fashion, travel, social life. My husband thought exactly as I did. We lived for comfort and social respectability, not for the eternity that awaited us. She goes on to describe how, outwardly, her life seemed successful and happy. We lived well outwardly, she writes, but inwardly I was never truly happy. Something always gnawed at my soul, an inner voice that I constantly silenced with activities and distractions. She scoffs at the medieval idea of hell as a fable, with flames, demons, and a demonic red light. She recalls how she once held a lit match under a friend's nose, joking, "See, this is what hell smells like." Now she writes with genuine horror, "Here, no one puts out the fire. The flames don't burn the body but the soul itself, and they never go out." The fire of hell means real fire, not a metaphor for psychological remorse, but truly real fire that cannot be escaped. She explains the profound mystery of this infernal torment. Our souls are bound to this fire for all eternity. We cannot think or will as we would choose. We know exactly that we will never see God, and this knowledge is torture beyond any human description. She observes that the more light a person received in life, the greater the pain in hell. Catholics suffer more, she writes, because they were given more truth and deliberately despised it. Those who sinned through malice suffer more than those who fell through ordinary weakness, but no one suffers more than they deserve to suffer. Annie admits that she knew exactly where she was headed before she died. She had felt the final call of grace, a last invitation to true and genuine repentance, and had consciously rejected it. On the day of her death, she and her husband went for a drive. It was an absolutely beautiful summer morning, promising a pleasant day. As they were returning, a blinding glare from an oncoming car caused them to lose control of their vehicle. The car rolled violently. In that fateful instant, she cried out, not in genuine prayer for forgiveness, but in pure animalistic fervor. And then everything went dark, completely black, definitively final. "I awoke in light," she writes, "a piercing light that revealed the totality of my life. I saw every grace I had rejected throughout all the years of my existence. I saw every opportunity to pray that I had wasted. I saw every occasion when God had whispered his call, and I had silenced it. It was like standing in a courtroom before the victim I had murdered and realizing that the victim was myself. But remorse? Never. Shame? Never. Only pure, absolute hatred. And then I fled as Cain fled from Abel. That was my personal judgment before Christ. Then came the words that will echo forever. Come down from me. And she fell into the eternal flame. Claraara, the nun, finishing reading the last trembling line, watched as the paper in her hands turned to ashes. At that precise instant, the bells of the nearby church began to ring. The Angelus, the sound of prayer rising through the morning air. It was as if heaven itself were answering the voice of despair she had witnessed. She fell to her knees and began to pray deeply. And in that sacred silence, she finally understood. Mercy is real, but only while we are still alive to seek it. This is the true meaning of the letter from beyond. It is not simply a frightening story intended to terrify. It is a warning wrapped in mercy, a call to conversion. Because what Annie lost forever, we can still find while we breathe. The urgent question then becomes, how do we avoid her fate? How do we ensure that our souls do not fall asleep spiritually in the same way hers did? How do we ensure that we do not commit the same fundamental error that Annie committed? It begins with genuine and profound prayer. Not just empty words that we repeat mechanically, but authentic, meditative prayer. Each day, set aside time to be completely alone with God in silence. Set aside 30 precious minutes for genuine meditation on the words of the gospel of Christ. For the first 15 minutes, try to memorize the passage word for word. Allow each phrase to penetrate deeply into your heart. Let the words take root in your soul. Then, in the next 15 minutes, begin to ask personal questions. What is happening here in this passage? What is God specifically saying to me through this moment? What profound truth is hidden behind each word? This type of genuine meditation transforms the soul because it forces the practitioner to stop living superficially and begin to live in the real presence of God. Above all other devotions, pray the Rosary with genuine attention. The Virgin Mary herself revealed in Fatima that this is the most powerful of all Marian devotions. Through it, countless souls have been rescued from sin and despair throughout the centuries. The intercession of the Blessed Virgin is the strongest shield in heaven and on earth, and every night before going to sleep, make a genuine and honest daily examination of conscience. Look with absolute sincerity at your entire day, your secret thoughts, your words spoken in private, all your actions. Ask forgiveness where you have fallen into sin, and offer gratitude where you have been able to love genuinely. Go to confession frequently, receive Holy Communion regularly, as St. Pius X taught, because grace grows in the soul that has a genuine hunger for it. What you have just heard in the letter from beyond is not an isolated story unconnected to the truth. It echoes the same truth proclaimed by the magisterium of the Church for centuries. A truth defended with fire and tears by the saints and by the Church itself. One of the clearest voices on this truth was Monsignor Luigi Gaston de Ségur, author of the 19th century book entitled Hell, What It Is, and How to Avoid It. This book was personally praised by Pope Pius IX, who called it a work that penetrates hearts and brings souls back to the path of genuine salvation. In that classic book, Monsignor de Ségur reminds us that the greatest tragedy of our time is not that people sin, but that people have completely ceased to believe in sin as a reality. He states that those who laugh at hell are often precisely those who fear it most deeply. And it's true. Deep within the conscience of every person, there still exists the knowledge that eternity is real. Monsignor de Ségur explains that the essence of hell is not fire. It is separation from God, being cut off from the one who is love itself. That is the true inner torment. And yet the fire remains as a symbol of the soul's inner truth, a conscience burning forever in the knowledge that it deliberately chose darkness instead of light. He warns us that the path to damnation is not sudden and dramatic. It is slow, comfortable, paved with small excuses and forgotten prayers. He writes, "The road to hell is wide and easy. It descends gently, and all one has to do is keep walking without questioning the direction." But the same book offers genuine hope. Monsignor de Ségur states that every soul that seriously considers hell will begin to turn towards heaven, because fear, when illuminated by truth, is the first grace of true conversion. And so the saints tell us to meditate on eternity, not to gratuitously terrify ourselves, but to awaken, to truly understand that every choice, every thought, every word has absolute eternal weight. If we wish to be saved, Monsignor de Ségur offers us a rule of life, simple but powerful, to live in a state of genuine grace, to go to confession frequently, to examine your conscience every night before sleeping, to begin and end each day with sincere prayer, to remain close to the Eucharist as St. Pius X taught, because grace grows in the soul that has a genuine hunger for it, and to entrust your life to the Virgin Mary through the daily rosary, because, as he says, the intercession of Our Lady is the strongest shield in heaven and on earth. He concludes his book with these powerful words, "Think often and seriously about hell, and you will go to heaven. The great missionary of heaven is hell. Therefore remember, God does not want us to fear him in a servile way. He wants us to wake up. The purpose of fear is not despair, but genuine repentance. And repentance is the door to true peace." If you've watched this far, perhaps it's because something inside you knows this is true. Don't waste the grace God is offering you now. Start today, even with just one prayer, one act of faith, one true confession. Because, as Monsignor de Ségur writes, heaven begins the moment the soul truly turns back to God. If this story touched your heart deeply, please share it with others and subscribe to our channel. Not for the sake of views, but because the world needs to remember that eternity is real and that mercy awaits those who genuinely seek it.